Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future. Shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
In a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
And hello and welcome to Real Talk with the Cummings. My name is Mark Angelo Cummings. I think you all know that by now, but you know.
And my name is Lena Ariel Cummings, and you probably know that by now.
Yeah. Although, you know, going back and forth with our legal name, our birth name, you know.
We are who we are. Our spirit never changed.
Of course. Yeah, and it's, yeah, life is such a journey. You know, sometimes people take the journey way too seriously.
It is. It's a crazy journey, but I like the journey that I'm on. You know, I appreciate the lessons that I've learned throughout this journey, and I'm looking forward to all the lessons that I have yet to learn in this journey.
It's a never-ending learning fest.
Ryan's with us.
Hey, Ryan. How's it going?
Ryan M4.
Yes. Yeah, it's, you know, many people, I don't know, they take life for granted. They get so entangled in the drama on the web that they weave. And when you surrender and just kind of like flow with the river, you know, just kind of like let the universe guide, let the healing begin. Don't get stuck in all the logistics and all the woes me. And I think that, you know, everyone should be okay. It's when they start taking things way too serious and they become obsessive about life, whether it's about making money, whether it's about, you know, trying to be something. I mean, it doesn't matter. That excess obsession, I think, is what creates a lot of problems.
Yeah, and, you know, finding that peace, you know, is so important. And not living in the past and not living with guilt from things that have happened in the past, maybe of your doing or someone else who affected you, and just learning to let go of that stuff is just, it's just really a neat way to live your life.
And I think that's the reason we're here, to learn how to get rid of that extra baggage that we carry. And, you know, it's not needed. I mean, you have to be aware and awake and present. You know, you can't just how we say in Spanish, ahoga un vaso de agua, you drown in a glass of water, and that's what most people do. We're doing great, Ryan. Thank you for asking. I hope you are too.
Busy these days. Busy?
I'm sure it is, and I'm sure they're getting ready to get cold. I mean, it's October 5th already, so towards the end, usually cold starts coming in after Halloween. That's when things start to change.
Yeah, it just starts cooling off, and we're going to an October event tomorrow. One of these bands that I think it's the first band that we ever danced to. They're called the Illusion Band.
Yeah.
Going to be able to go listen and dance to some of their music, and it'll be pretty fun.
Yes, as usual. Dancing is a good thing. You know, moving around, letting your soul just movement is a great thing.
What did you learn from what we watched yesterday? I mean, I was affected by it. The video that we ended up watching on YouTube.
What was it called again?
It's the ethereal.
Yeah.
Something, I forget what it was called, but it was, I guess a Christian did it, And it made us think. You know, it's like so many other things have made us think throughout a relationship.
It's part of growth. You can't just stay stagnant. That's why we're truth seekers and truth tellers. I mean, but fully have found the full truth of anything yet. We're still kind of like deciphering things, and that's a good thing, because if somebody tells you they know it all and they discover it, run very far away from that person. But what I learned, besides the fact that I was falling asleep, is every time I lay down and watch something on TV, that's like usually I go in this like, and then lights up. But what I did learn, you know, is that mankind still doesn't know, still growing and evolving, and religion is very fear-based. And that's what I got from this video, that, you know, if you dabble in crystals, or if you dabble in meditation and using herbs to open up your third eye, then you're letting in spirits that don't belong in there. Well, how do we know it's not the other way around? How do we know that we're being dumbed down? They don't want us to evolve and grow as spirit beings.
True.
And, you know, they just want to calcify our third eye, and that's why they poison our waters with fluoride and dumb us down with our food. So, you know, there's a part of me that wants to believe, like, oh, yes, you know, that the God of the Bible is all-knowing and it's all good and whatever. But then I read stuff and it makes me think differently. So it's like a dance that I'm still doing. I mean, there are parts of the Bible that ring true, and there's parts of the Bible that don't ring true. There's parts of this so-called New Age that ring true, and there's part that doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I heard, like, today when we were watching the video, was how if any belief system makes you bow down to it,
Get on your knees.
and get on your knees for fear,
yeah,
then it's probably not a good belief system to base your life on, because the essence of God, is how I believe, is love.
Yeah.
It's not like this do or die thing.
Fearful, you know, guilt-ridden type of enslavement, which is what, you know, pretty much. And if that is the God, and the God of the Bible is that way, or gods, because, you know, they talk about many different gods, and I consider that like the fallen angel. And then what we were watching last night was trying to make us believe that the fallen angels are the ones that are trying to dupe us. Well, yeah, they are, because they're probably pretending to be God and the devil at the same time. You know?
So, I mean, for me, growing up and hearing the whole Christian side of the argument and their basis of belief, I know very well, I'm very well acquainted with the Christian belief, you know, but I still have a fundamental problem with the balance of Christianity, because it balances itself on so much masculine, like God supposed to be a man, a male, he, you know, they always talk about God as being masculine. And then Jesus,
another masculine.
Okay, another masculine energy. But
and who ate from the tree? Who is being demonized? Eve. So everything is against women and all pro male.
Yeah, but the beauty of the feminine energy that, you know, carries the baby to term, that you know, the earth is the womb of all living things. I mean, all this feminine energy expressed in creation, in our daily lives, even our own mothers seemingly are more important than, you know, our parent, our dad, you know, because without a mom, the family structure falls apart. Without a dad in the family structure, the family structure can still keep going.
Right.
But without a mom, it's like, you know, everything falls apart unless dad takes on the mom.
Well, if you look at the big picture, or whatever you want to call it, if you have a baby and the mother does not provide, let's say that we don't have stores around and it's just, you know, back in the day, then the child will starve, because the father has no way of feeding that child, and some mother's milk that
Right, the child will die.
The child dies. So yeah, it's extremely important, and I think that's why we're so out of balance as a planet, as the people of this planet, because the masculine energy has taken over. And I think maybe that is one of the reasons that we see this gender confusion, and we see men wanting to think they're becoming woman or want to become woman or whatever else, and it's part of that imbalance. And I think that it is more spiritual than the conventional way of looking at things, the typical, and because male are very visual. Because everything's about visuality, how they look and how they're going to dress and but they're missing the actual spiritual feminine energy.
But the reality is that within both sexes exist
both a male and a female side, as Carl Jung or Yang, balancing the yin and the yang. And I think that that's where gender expression it's like plummeted in our society, because it's like a need of that balance. So it's like, but it's almost like something that's gone rogue, that doesn't know how to balance itself. It's just like pew, 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 all over the place. But I think the essence of it all is that we as human beings, as spirit beings, are trying to balance our yin with our yang, our masculine with our feminine.
And finding that balance is the beauty, not putting one down over the other.
Yeah.
I mean,
in today's spiritual corner, we're going to talk about that, how women have really demonized men, and the movement, the feminist movement, has really, created an us against them. And maybe this us against them is not the answer. Maybe we need to unite and try to understand one another as male and female.
So we're going to get into
some more autogynephelia. I am very obviously amazed by this autogynephelia and trying to understand. And again, in this article, it's very fair regarding, and was written by Miranda Yardley, who we interviewed, almost 2 years ago. And I find it very interesting because, in a sense, it's a way of men wanting to bring out their inner female and then becoming totally mesmerized by this inner female, because all their life they've been told boys are supposed to be rough and tough and boys don't cry, and they're trying to hold on this masculine weight on them, and then like they get a glimpse of their female side, which we all have a male and a female side. There's not one person in this world that does not have both a yin and a yang. That they oppress it is one thing, but everybody does. But when this male persona gets a glimpse of their female persona, they become mesmerized. And I think it's taken out of context. Instead of trying to understand it, it becomes very visualized, very sexualized for some people, and very self-enamored for others. But we're going to go ahead and read what Miranda Yardley has to say about the subject. Autogynephelia as an idea suffers from far more talk than understanding. A fair barometer of whether an individual understands even the first thing about autogynephelia is their denial, either of its existence, its veracity as a scientific framework within which to understand key aspects of transsexualism, or the role of autogynephelia in the process which creates the non-homosexual transsexual.
A lot of the blame for autogynephilia is placed at the feet of the researcher who coined the term, Ray Blanchard, and that he somehow has it in for the trans community. An unusual position given his support for the rights of and access to medical care for transsexuals, whether autogynephilic or not.
What they've done with the man, somebody who was really pro-trans, do some research and found some great information, which again, denial for a lot of people hurt the more information regarding this. The purpose of this essay is to contextualize Blanchard's role in the understanding of transsexualism and demonstrate this line of inquiry, having started at least a century ago, and show his role in the development of the idea along with J. Michael Bailey's work, which popularized the concept of Anne Lawrence's later conceptualization of autogynephilia as romantic love with
this, more than anything, is a history of an idea, with the topic of autogynephelia having been mandated out of public discourse for political end, even though the effects of this are manifest in plain sight in the lives of millions and transgender individuals. It is important to keep the conversation going, because ideas evolve and compassion can be shown and understanding given to autogynephilic transsexuals without indulging in fantasy or supporting delusions.
The two types of model of transsexualism. Well, the identification of an erotic component to transsexualism goes back to the early 20th century, with the existence of what was described as an automonosexual streak amongst transvestites was discussed. The experience shows that this automonosexual streak, just like the homosexual streak, isn't the same for every transvestite. There are many to whom or for whom the simple changing of clothes isn't enough to cause erotic feelings and just see it as a way of bringing their feminine inner side to the outer world. I knew those who were already content if they were able to go for a walk as a woman from time to time. During the walk, they never had erections, nor ejaculation, nor the desire to have any sexual intercourse, be it with male or female persons. One could say they are asexual. This was Hirschfield's 1918 book or whatever.
The existence of two discrete types of transsexual, differentiated by sexual orientation and age, was hypothesized by Burrick in 1978, which also conjectured why transsexualism was observed to be more common in males than females. The results of this study indicate that they can be differentiated into two clinically discrete groups. In an investigation of 29 transsexuals who sought a change of sex operation, it was found that those who had experienced fetishistic arousal were significantly more likely to be older, to have experienced heterosexual intercourse, to be married, and to show penile responses to pictures of men and women, indicative of a more heterosexual orientation.
They had less experience of homosexual contact to orgasm as compared to transsexuals who had not experienced fetishistic arousal, but this difference was not statistically significant. Frequency of cross-dressing, strength of feminine gender identity, intensity of desire for a sex change operation did not discriminate the two groups. The fact that the desire for a sex change operation may be associated with experience of fetishistic arousal could be one reason for the higher incidence of transsexualism in men than in women. Bullrich, 1978.
In a later paper, Bullrich and McConaughey went as far as to suggest that there were three distinct classes of fetishistic transvestite. A nuclear transvestite who are limited to cross-dressing, transvestite who wish for hormonal feminization or surgery, fetishistic transsexuals who demonstrate fetishistic arousal, but as transsexuals seek reassignment surgery. In 1985, sexologist Ray Blanchard used a large sample size and confirmed the observation that there exists a fundamental difference between homosexual transsexuals, homosexual males romantically and sexually attracted to males, and non-homosexual transsexuals, which includes heterosexual, bisexual, and asexual transsexuals.
The study tested a prediction derived from the hypothesis that asexual and bisexual transsexualisms are actual subtypes of heterosexual transsexualism. A cluster analysis of their scores divided the subject into four groups: heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and asexual. There were no difference amongst the asexual, bisexual, and heterosexual transsexuals, and all three groups included a much higher proportion of fetishistic cases than the homosexual group. These findings support the view that male transsexuals may be divided into two basic types: heterosexual and homosexual. Blanchard, 1985.
Together, these papers teach us that transsexuals may be grouped into homosexual and non-homosexual transsexuals, and that the latter group appears to contain a number of subtypes, which could be taken to correspond to an ordinal degree of fetishistic transvesticism. observations are supported by empirical evidence. The differences manifest in, quote, a much higher proportion of fetishistic cases than the homosexual group, unquote. And so Blanchard confirms the identifications of two types of male transsexual who are differentiated by sexual orientation, with one group displaying a fetishistic or paraphilic history.
Blanchard became a key figure in the history of investigation into transsexualism a few years later, where he attempted to impart some meaning and rigor into the terminology surrounding the taxonomy of transsexuals as part of a systemic study into the phenomenon. Autogynephelia, a clear description of something that had hitherto been described as part of automonosexualism. This is what has become known as Blanchard's transsexual typology, or the two-type transsexual typography.
Gender identity disturbance in males is always accompanied by one erotic anomalies. All gender dysphoric males who are not sexually oriented toward men are instead sexually oriented themselves as women. The latter erotic propensity is, of course, the phenomenon labeled as automonosexualism. Because of the inconsistent history of this term, however, and its non-descriptive derivation, would prefer to replace it with the term autogynephelia, meaning love of oneself as a woman.
It should be noted that the use of the expression erotic anomalies is used in a morally neutral context to describe sexual acts that are inherently non-procreative rather than being a pejorative expression. Key to the concept of autogynephelia is that it's not something that is always on the mind, or is it something that's confined solely to cross-dressing. It should be noted that the concept of autogynephelia does not imply that autogynephilic males are always sexually aroused by the thought of themselves as women, or by dressing in women's clothes, or by contemplating themselves cross-dressed in the mirror, any more than a man in love always obtains an erection at the sight of a sweetheart or pair-bonded geese copulating continuously. Autogynephilia, according to this hypothesis, may be manifested in a variety of ways, and fetishistic cross-dressing is only one of them. Those individuals labeled transvestites by contemporary clinicians would, on this view, be understood as autogynephiles whose only or most prominent symptoms is sexual arousal in association with cross-dressing, and who have not or not yet become gender dysphoric. Blanchard, 1989.
Defining this behavior in terms that lie outside of transvestic fetishism allowed Blanchard to apply his systematic study to a wider spectrum of behavior observed within transsexuals. And he explained the etymology of this word based upon a, quote, male's propensity to be sexually aroused by the thought or image of himself as a female, Blanchard, 1991. He then identifies 4 different types of autogynephilic behavior, which may exist in any combination: physiological, behavioral, anatomical, and transvestic fetishist.
Autogynephilic fantasies and behavior may occur on the idea of exhibiting female physiological functions, of engaging in stereotypical feminine behavior, or possessing female anatomic structure, or dressing in women's apparel. The last mentioned class of fantasies and behaviors represent the familiar form of autogynephilia transvestism. All 4 types of autogynephilia tend to occur in a combination with other types rather than alone. Blanchard, 1991.
Blanchard provides a typological framework for researchers to model or systematically behaviors of male transsexuals that separates these into homosexual and non-homosexual transsexuals, the latter who tend to be autogynephilic, exhibiting 1 or more types of paraphilic behaviors. Blanchard has compared these paraphilic behaviors to a sexual orientation, Blanchard, 1993.
The homosexual transsexuals are what one may consider the more classic, quote-unquote, popular image of the transsexual, with the non-homosexual transsexuals making lives that encompass successful careers as men, as well as marriages and children, before transitioning later in life. Lawrence, 2004.
Understand that the homosexual transsexual and the non-homosexual transsexual have different lives and experiences, although there is commonality in that they are both transsexual, and as Lawrence refers to above similar levels of experienced gender dysphoria. In his 2003 book, The Man Who Would Be Queen, The Science of Gender Bending and Transsexualism, psychologist J. Michael Bailey in 2003 explains.
Two different types of men change their sex. To anyone who examines them closely, they're quite dissimilar in their histories, their motivations, their degree of femininity, their demographics, and even the way they look. We know little about the cause of either type of transsexualism, though we have some good hunches about one type. But I'm certain that when we finally do understand the causes of the two types, will be completely different.
To anyone who has seen members of both types and who has learned to ask the right kinds of questions, it is easy to tell them apart. Yet the difference has eluded virtually everyone who cares about transsexuals: talk show hosts, journalists, most people who evaluate and treat them, and even most academics who have studied them. One reason is that the superficial similarity of the two types is so striking. Both are men, usually dressed and attempting to act like women, who want to replace their penises with vaginas. It prevents us from noticing more subtle, although more fundamental differences. Another reason is that the two types of transsexuals side by side, where they would be easily distinguishable. The most interesting reason why most people do not realize that there are two types of transsexuals is that the members of one type sometimes misrepresent themselves as members of the other type. I will get more specific later, but for now, it is enough to say that they are often silent and instead tell stories about themselves that are misleading and respects false.
So from soon after birth, the homosexual male to female transsexual behaves and feels like a girl. Unlike most feminine boys, these transsexuals do not outgrow or learn to hide their femininity. Instead, the drastic step of changing their sex is preferable. They unambiguously desire and love men, especially heterosexual men, only as women. One type of transsexual man is a kind of homosexual man.
Honest and open autogynephilic transsexuals reveal a much different pattern. They were not especially feminine boys. The first overt manifestation of what led to their transsexualism was typically during early adolescence, when they secretly dressed in their mother's or sister's lingerie, looked at themselves in the mirror, and masturbated. This activity continued into adulthood, and sexual fantasies became increasingly transsexual, especially the fantasy of having the vulva, perhaps being penetrated by a penis. Autogynephilic transsexuals might declare attraction to women or men, to both or to neither, but their primary attraction is to the women that they would become.
Bailey's interpretation of the motivation to change sex of homosexual transsexual is to attract heterosexual men. We could consider, given the choice of homophobic society of living as a feminine gay man or as a woman, the homosexual transsexual may opt for the latter. While identifying the autogynephile motivation for many behavioral traits, he stopped short of hypothesizing why the autogynephile would transition. Surely the prospect of castration and removal of the penis would be an irrational course of action for someone whose sexual identity was so invested in this. This, however, would be based on the misconception that autogynephilia is exclusively erotic. And Lawrence suggested autogynephile's motivation may be compared to a romantic love with elements of attachment. Lawrence, 2003.
Purely erotic aspects of autogynephilia have received the greatest emphasis, while the aspects related to amatory propensity, quote-unquote, sexual orientation, quote-unquote, and love, quote-unquote, have received comparatively little. Love has been conspicuously absent in most discussions of autogynephilia, whether by its advocates or by its critics. Individuals are often especially inclined to seek out passionate love experiences or to allow themselves the possibility of entering into them in middle age and in times of crisis.
This is consistent with the life history of many, if not most, non-homosexual MTF transsexuals, who tend to seek sex reassignment in their 40s or later, sometimes in association with a midlife crisis. Their decision to undergo sex reassignment is not uncommonly preceded by some significant loss or reversal, such as unemployment, physical disability, or the end of an important relationship. Or individuals who experience autogynephelia deciding to become what one loves can represent an attempt to cope with adverse life circumstances, such as deciding to pursue a love affair with another person, can, for individuals with more conventional sexual orientation. The process of changing one's body and living as a woman offers an identity, a program of action, and a purpose in life.
Conclusion is the understanding of an erotic component to transsexualism is at least a century old. The ability to discuss and exchange ideas leads to the formulation of better ideas and a better understanding of the phenomena we investigate, as can be seen with the conceptualization of autogynephelia as romantic love. I will cover the political eradication of autogynephelia from public understanding in another later post. To continue to ignore this idea betrays women who are directly affected by the imposition of men becoming women, and the men who themselves seek to, quote unquote, become women.
Very interesting take on this. You know, it's individuals, the autogynephile who's not always, because I think that's what a lot of people feel shameful about it, because they don't want to be tagged with some fetishistic, you know, sexual derived type of fantasy. But it's individuals, you know, they're searching for love, and they kind of like fall in love with the image that they're creating, and it's somehow a way of coping with life's, you know, adverse circumstances. And you know, it could be due to any kind of trauma that they faced. I mean, a lot of the autogynephelia, I think, starts from a very young age, although it's not presented, but a way of escaping. You know, it's, I mean, it needs to be studied more, and I think a lot more and more people need to really understand it and not run away from it and feel like it's some sort of taboo, because, you know.
I mean, you know, it's like these things are demonized, you know, and people that deal with these types of things, they feel shamed. They feel like they need to like kind of bury that, you know, and there are so many in the trans community that do their darndest to try to cover this all up. And, you know, this person, Miranda Yardley, is a person who transitioned and actually had SRS and everything, and they lived their life in the gendered reality that they wanted to live their life in. But they are now friends with feminists, and they accept the fact that they weren't.
They're not a woman.
And they're not a woman. Right. They're very much an ally to women. But how they choose to present themselves is what someone would label as more feminine than you know, another. But you know, it's something that needs to be confronted, and it's time that people just deal with reality. Deal with the fact that maybe you have a sexuality that's different.
And maybe consider it as a sexuality.
Yeah, maybe you do have a sexuality that's different. Maybe it's something that you don't need to like feel ashamed of. Just own the reality that maybe you are attracted to, you know, your thought of being a female, or behaving in a way that would be more to you, more feminine or whatever. But you know, it's time to take the gloves off of this like this like embarrassment, you know,
the shame that's put behind it. I mean, it's like the way it says here, the process of changing one's body and living as a woman offers an identity. And a lot of middle-aged men or men that are like, oh, is this it? Is this all life has to offer me? I want more. You know, I want to. So it offers an identity. a program of action and a purpose in life. For a lot of people, that's like there's no more, purpose. So it's like they become attached to this new identity that they're creating, and it's just, they may have not been gone home the greatest guy in the world, or and so it's like, well, I sucked at being a dude, so I'm gonna try my darndest to try to be a female. So they create this relationship with themselves, and again, there's no shame in it. It's just understanding it instead of trying to take, like Yardley says here, it's a betrayal of a woman who are directly affected by the imposition of men becoming women and the men who themselves seek to become women.
Now, it goes beyond too far when one decides to rearrange their personal private genitals and try to configure them in a way that would be deemed to look like the opposite sex. Because honestly, when it does that, it gets you absolutely nowhere. And we have already talked about it, how it breaks down your health, how it damages your body. And we have a video that we're going to share with a person that we both know that is struggling, and is struggling because of the decisions they made in order to make their reality their truth, and standing in it come what may. And the reality is that expression is a beautiful thing. And I mean, I don't see anything wrong with someone choosing to express in a way that isn't the typical norm.
Exactly.
I mean, exactly. And there are thousands of men who are absolutely ashamed of what they have, like what turns them on.
Exactly.
And they're absolutely ashamed, so they go to these lengths to like hide it and never tell their wives and live in anonymity and embarrassment. And they go to all these steps and I remember there was this one person that they're constantly taking pictures of themselves. They're constantly like there's a transgender site called TG Forum, I think, and they have a contest for the most beautiful whatever trans person or whatever, and they constantly take pictures. They're married. They have a photography studio that is like disconnected from the house, and they're Bob during the day. Their daughters don't know, their wife doesn't know, nobody knows about this man's obsession with clothing and
bringing out being a woman,
looking this certain way. And I remember talking to them, and it was before I transitioned. I'm like, why do you do this? Why don't you just transition? And they're like, oh no, if I go that route, I'll lose my family. I'll lose my marriage. I'll lose my job. I mean, I just want to, be able to have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And this is my expression.
And you know what? He's doing the right thing, because when people think remotely that they could actually change sex, that's impossible. Totally impossible.
It is impossible.
And you find that out after the fact, after everybody's lost their thing, after they've hurt their health, after, so I think that there needs to be a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for, transparency in this, and gender specialists need to stop railing people in, but it wouldn't make money, because the part of this whole trans thing is the amount of money that is made through surgeries and hormones, and people are destroying their lives.
And the real sad thing about this whole ride is that families are destroyed. And the lives of an autogynephilic transsexual transitioning at 40 plus means destroying your family, destroying your career. It means destroying everything you built for yourself and for others, and
self-destruction.
It destroys your identity. It destroys your reputation. It
Your
destroys your health. It destroys your future. You know, so these are things that therapists, quote unquote, they just look past as if it's not even an issue. It's like a non-issue to them. Literally, they look at a person and they don't consider the whole of what's going to happen, the impact that the creator of a transsexual transitioning, like an autogynephile, a cross-dresser, for sake of a better word, you know, they say the difference between a transsexual and a cross-dresser is 2 years. 2 years. So here we have a person who has been cross-dressing, and then they choose to buy into the thought that they are actually not the gender that they are intended to be, and they cross the line into transsexualism, and they choose to get hormones. They choose to change their and everything.
They justify the moment of pleasure and feeling that they have created, so they're not shamed, and then they create this gender identity, gender dysphoria, you know, and it's become the party line. And when in reality, you know, no one's born wrong. There is no disorder. It's just choice that one has to either do as your friend did or cross the street, or whatever you want to call it, go to the other side. And there are a lot of ramifications. And again, people should not feel shame at all. They shouldn't feel shame because, you know, it's like, hey, this is a world. You know, this is the world that you live in. You know, the homosexual, transsexual, and not to justify anybody, did whatever, they didn't marry, but then the other individuals, they did, so they brought other people in. So, you know, the moral of the story is that gender specialists really need to like look at the bigger picture and realize that there are 2 types of transsexuals, not just one. You know, there are 2 types, and they need to handle it a little bit differently.
They do, and they don't need to be so flippant on, you know, saying, okay, it doesn't depend on a gender therapist anymore because all the gatekeepers have been kicked out, and there's no way for people to be stopped from getting hormones and all that. I mean, it's like a free-for-all at this point. It's like the Wild West. So people can do whatever they darn well please. You know, I mean, it's like, I remember there was this person that obviously still had a career, they still had a wife, and they were messing with buying hormones down south. And then they were feeling bad because they were running out of hormones. And I was telling this person, their name in, you know, their fem name was Brianna. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Why have you told your spouse, your wife, that you're developing issue and that you're taking hormones, and that, oh no, I can't say a thing. I mean, you know, oh, I'll just, if I do get caught, I'll just tell her that my cardiac doctor is telling me that I need to take these estrogen. So on top of the other line, and this guy
will do anything to get that inner female out, you know, from creating sympathy from other people to lying to doing whatever it takes, because it's powerful. That inner female is very powerful. It will lie, it will cheat, it will do whatever it has to deny. It is what it is. The comments here, do you want to say something else about it? There's somebody who asked a question in the comment section here. What about autogynephelia? Is it rare? I came across a while back. I had both types, and he lost the desire to transition after he started taking hormones, which sometimes happens with AGP.
I think what happens with AGP is that they start taking hormones and then losing their sex drive. Yeah. So once they lose their sex drive, then they lose what creates that dopamine high. You know, I mean,
but then you have the asexual one who really doesn't really care that it's just
right, because they're just making they're making their object of perfection and their sexual high is coming from.
Let's see if there's any other good comments here. That's all I'm going to do about that.
I just find it a disservice that the people that are supposed to be helping gender dysphoria aren't really helping at all.
No,
all they're
not.
doing is being enablers, because they are basically swinging the door wide open for who have a sexual identity, and they're letting them think what they have is gender dysphoria, where even when a homosexual transsexual transitions, it's for a different reason. It's not because they're feeling like they were born in the wrong body. It's more so because they are attracted to what they're attracted to, and they feel like they can be attracted and attractive to specifically a heterosexual male, more so than if they were to stay and remain. Now, that doesn't justify their behavior either. It doesn't justify anyone choosing to transition and making themselves seem as if they can cross the gender line and become something that they're not. But, that people do these things, and the two different groups do it for different reasons.
We're like losing
That's okay.
background.
There's nothing I can do.
New MRI studies support the Blanchard typology of male to female transsexuals. Because, discredit. I was reading some of the comments or, being rude to Yarley there. And they'll do anything to discredit it because they just, it's like they don't want to be found out. That's not me and blah, blah, blah. Well, two independent empirical articles have recently appeared in the literature that's taken together bear out an hypothesis Blanchard 2008 postulates in the archives about brain development in transsexualism. The brain of both homosexual and heterosexual male to female transsexual probably differ from the brain of your typical heterosexual men, but in different ways. In homosexual male, female transsexual, the difference does involve sex dysmorphic structure, and the nature of the difference is a shift to the female typical direction. If there is any neuroanatomic intersexuality, it is a homosexual group. In heterosexual male to female transsexual, the difference involves sex dysmorphic structure at all. And the nature of the structural difference is not necessarily along the male to female dimension.
Prediction follows from studies that have repeatedly shown that homosexuals are female shifted in multiple sexually dimorphic characteristics, whereas the heterosexual male to female transsexuals are not. For example, homosexual male to female transsexuals are sexually attracted to natal males, express female typical activities even in childhood, and are naturally effeminate in mannerism. In contrast, heterosexual male to female transsexuals are indistinguishable from non-transsexual natal males on those variables.
The heterosexual transsexual are still distinct from typical males in other ways. However, such as by manifesting autogynephelia, erotic interest in or sexual arousal in response to being or being seen as female, being or seeming as female. The consistent detection of cross-sex features among homosexual male to female transsexual, but not among heterosexual male to female transsexual, led Blanchard to predict that the cross-sex pattern would also emerge at the level of brain anatomy and be limited to homosexual male to female transsexual. The prediction now appears to be the case, with Ramadi 2010 supporting his prediction for the homosexual transsexual, and Savick and Arver 2010 for the heterosexual transsexual.
We used an MRI technique called diffusion tensor to compare homosexual male to female transsexuals with non-transsexual heterosexual control males and with non-transsexual heterosexual control females. the male controls with the female controls to identify the sex dimorphic portions of the brain, and then contrasted the homosexual transsexuals with each of the control groups on the dimorphic brain regions. The initial contrast identified 6 dimorphic brain regions. The homosexual transsexual sample was intermediate in volume on all 6 brain structures, significantly different from the male controls on 5 of the 6, significantly different from the female controls on all 6. These male to female transsexuals were different from the control males, shifted towards the female direction.
You know, and this is not at all to say that homosexual transsexuals are women or they have women brain. I just think that as you see a gay male, the way they act, the excessively feminine, the excessively like the ones that do drag, the ones that are really like drama queens, as I call it, do that, you know, maybe because of the brain function, but that doesn't mean that they have a female brain.
But even then, when they do that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a over
Overly,
the top,
yeah.
because you know, like, okay, like, let me say, for instance, when you put testosterone in a female body,
Mm-hmm.
the reactions of it over the top,
Yeah,
of
exactly.
what, you know,
What a typical guy
what
would
a typical guy would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you put testosterone in your body, you started becoming very, very hairy, right?
Which is not your typical guy. You know, you're a bear.
Right.
And then and I see a lot of trans guys, and even I did this myself, it's like this overly masculine, nice type of, you know, behavior. And with gay men, I don't know necessarily if their brain, you know, was, because no brain is gendered, but I think it's more of the environment, maybe the way the mothers treated them when they were little, maybe the way that they just try to emphasize or compensate. And they just, you know, because you see a lot of gay men, and it's like, oh, darling, and all this stuff, and they do, and it's like, so maybe that created a change in their brain.
And that's the thing, though, because they say that that's like a woman than women, but that's not accurate either, because they just are.
Right.
So it's like there's some women that are feminine,
and
very feminine, mannerisms and everything, but I don't think even the most feminine woman is as over the top as, say,
and the brain would change to your behavior, because it's like when you're a baby, you can crawl and all that good stuff. For every movement that you make, there's changes that are taking place in your brain. So your environment influences your brain dramatically. The brain starts off as a clean slate, and as your environment dictates certain things, your brain starts to change. So an overly Google Gaga mother, oh, that's my baby boy, and I put a teeth and all that stuff, it starts to develop certain things in the brain. And then, you know, the kid wants to maybe mimic the mother or whatever else, and they start with this like, you know, this, I don't know. So let me go continue reading here. Savick and Harvard, 2010, applied anatomical MRIs with an analogous research design identifying the sex dimorphic portion of the brain, and contrasting that, this time, heterosexual transsexual sample with each control sample on the sex dimorphic brain regions. Of the 8 brain regions that distinguish male from female brains, the heterosexual transsexual sample different from the male controls on none.
Brain regions that distinguish these heterosexual transsexuals from the male controls is present in none. As Savick and Arver themselves emphasize, contrary to the primary hypothesis, no sex atypical features with signs of feminization were detected in the transsexual group. The present study does not support the dogma that male to female transsexuals have atypical sex dimorphism in the brain, although that statement should have been restricted to refer to heterosexual male to female transsexuals only.
All meriting emphasis is that although these data disconfirm that the heterosexual type has a feminized brain pattern, that nonetheless confirms that heterosexual transsexual have a brain structure distinct from the typical non-transsexual person. Their gender identity is not a transient or ephemeral characteristics, but a likely innate and immutable characteristic emerging from their particular brain structure. You know, and like, there's been studies that show that brains are not gendered, and you know that our brain is, it's like a clean slate. It actually changes according to the environment. It actually changes according to what we do and how we process things and how we view things. It's like, it's, so that whole concept of genders between years, that's all BS. You know, that's just basically, no, you were a kid and you saw your friends, you wanted to play with the girls, you wanted to feel like part of the girls, and hence you made that happen later on in life as an adult. You know, and there's no shame in it. I wish that people would stop, you know, just eliciting this victim mentality of this, like, feeling sorry for people. You know, that's what they want to elicit. They want to elicit, like, oh, please feel sorry for me because, you know, I was born in the wrong body. I'm in so much pain. And it's like, no, right? There's none of that, you know. Let's see here. So, spiritual order.
And I chose to find something that wasn't quite, you know, the typical of what I've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And there is much that I wanted to really discuss or have some discussion on with regards to the sacred feminine. But I found this article which was geared towards women, but it was trying to call them up to understand that this isn't just a man versus woman problem, that this isn't feminist versus the patriarchy kind of an issue that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a mankind issue. We're dealing with a humankind issue. We're dealing with both the male and the feminine energy being used in a perverted manner. You know, so
Excuse me.
I still think that, you know, and I saw it in some of the comments on this article, some feminists got upset because they're like, oh yeah, well, you're giving in to the patriarchy by saying this and whatnot. But they were trying to show that, the writer was trying to show that there's a balance that can be achieved, and not by going into one particular energy can we find wholeness, and not by going into the other energy can we find wholeness. And it's not about a call to the rise of the sacred feminine to overtake the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a call to balance.
Call to realize the humanness in all of us, and to actually, you know, break down the walls and stop, you know, wanting to be like, I noticed that women nowadays are overly wanting to be more masculine and more man type. Not so much in the way they act, but the roles that they take on. You know, they're losing, you know, a lot of what makes a woman, and men are losing a lot of what makes a man. And I think it stems from the imbalance that we have. You know,
so the article says, sisters, it's not all about us. Let's get off of our narcissistic goddess high horses and listen. The sacred masculine is calling.
Sister, I know we have been oppressed. Patriarchy has clipped our wings and silenced the witch call of our revolutionary voice for centuries. Sisters, I know we have fought tooth and nail, aching, plunging deeply into the wellsprings of our wombs, purging our pain and the pain of our ancestors, firstly through the bold feminist movement of our mothers, and more recently through the groundswell of conscious feminine spiritual practices which have volcanically erupted into the newly emerged earth consciousness.
Daily, hourly, moment by conscious moment, devoted ourselves to reawakening the divine feminine within and without. We have given everything, untied the bindings, slashed the belittling beliefs, nourished the seedlings of self-worth, sparked the phoenix-like rise of the circles of the sacred sisterhood to reclaim what has been suppressed, lost, and denied.
Sisters, we call ourselves goddesses, and we should, but let us not forget that with great power comes great responsibility. And hear me now. Patriarchy does not equate to masculinity. What we are fighting is not men. Sisters, maybe you think you know this, but do you really? If you do, let it be known through your actions. Put down your daggers, put down your spears against the masculine. For also you have had your righteous rage, and yes, I grant that you must have it. There is work to be done, no doubt. The rage without ending is not the solution, sisters. Stop.
Knives around your aura and keeping at bay the good men you sorely yearn to unite with. Stop callously offering up to a false altar the hearts of the lovers, kings, magicians, and warriors as the wrongful and bloody sacrifices for the historical mistakes of us all.
Patriarchy is a paradigm, my sisters, a paradigm which both men and women have alluded to be, or allowed to be. For far too long, each side of the gender coin has forgotten itself, forgotten its power and sacredness. The patriarchal paradigm was a co-creation. Yes, you heard that right. We both are responsible. Misogyny, or whatever misogyny is, a co-creation. To deny this is to deny your own power, to cast yourself into a space of victimhood, which is getting old. Sisters, so old, we cannot and will not be both goddess and victims.
We must choose the path of highest and deepest truth. The war against the sacred masculine must come to an end, sisters. Awaken your powers of listening and compassion, which are wise beyond measure. Centuries of patriarchal oppression does not require centuries of penance, sisters. Feel this. Do you know your essence is an all-encompassing, healing, sacred balm? We cannot be in our fullness until we understand this.
Listen, sisters, listen. Can you hear the sacred masculine calling? His essence is all around you. He is in pain, sisters. You are not the only one. Patriarchy has separated his goodness and his boldness from the one thing worth fighting for. You. Spirit, the sacred wholeness.
Get off your narcissistic goddess high horses and listen. You say you want a warrior? You say you want a Shiva to your Shakti? Then bring him into you. He's yearning for you. He profoundly aches for you. Just as rawly and wildly as you ache for him, with a staggering ardor and devotion that knows no bounds.
He wants nothing more than to give you his everything. Universes he yearns to give to you, sisters. How can he do that when you wield battle axes before him? You're not even listening. Did you know that the balm of your essence is the nectar of his soul? That the grace of your loving attention is the nutrients which sparks 1,000 sunshines in his heart? He would give his life for you.
Stop wasting time, sisters, both yours and his. If you cannot organically give the man before you the honor of your fullness, have the heart to turn yourself to the one who can. The one you can. Even if this means being alone for some time and waiting in radiant expectation for your one. Do not ask the beautiful man before you to pay penance at your feet for the disempowered mistakes of your grandmothers and grandfathers. Quit that blame game.
Divine masculine and feminine is not a transaction. There can be no tit for tat. Stop asking your men to fill a bottomless cup. You are the great mother. Can you imagine the contraction you cause when you cast your sons into the role of sinner? Reach you when you have damned him.
Sisters allow you to be men. Many think men are not evolved enough. You think they can't handle all of you, that you are too much woman for them. I call bullshit, sisters. This says more about your blindness than their faults.
The sacred masculine is everywhere. Sisters longing to be welcomed into your heart, to be warmly embraced in the intoxicating divinity of your velvet purity. Let go of the excuses. Give him safe harbor. Give him grace. Open your arms. See him. You have nothing to prove and everything to give.
All beneath the centuries of war, fighting in separation, all he wants is what you want too. The Hyros game of marriage of opposites. His dissolution into your arms and you into his. He wants to be the hero in the story, sisters. He wants to be your white knight. While you are blind with rage and fear, open your eyes.
Grace him with a presence, the love and the affection which will exalt him into the greatness. He will not fail you. He is only inches away from you every second of every day. He is behind you. He is beside you. He has protected you in ways you will never know or appreciate. He has offered you his life essence. Welcome him into you, sisters.
Boadicea, Joan of Arc, remove your armor. Callie, put down your scythe. The battle is over. Love has won.
Yeah, that is very, very deep. And, you know, the whole concept of books called Men Are From Venus and Women Are From Mars and vice versa. I think the human race needs to start to unite, needs to start to understand one another, needs to, you know, go in a space of love, not in a space of hatred, you know. So, you know, we're doing good here?
Yeah.
So, we're going to go ahead and share a little bit of this video. And we're doing it to show what happens with transitioners that transition later in life that are bitter, they're angry, they pretend to be happy because that's the status quo. You know, you will never see a transgender woman reveal the fact that they're unhappy, because men usually will not, you know, they will not reveal that to you. Shamefully that they've been taught to hide things, and it's not always their fault. But this is what happens to people when, you know, they feel that the world owes them something, that people need to just embrace them. This is what happens to people when they go too far into this transition and remove their testicles, which is their life force, their endocrine system. And we both have known this person, and they have totally, I mean, it's like they've aged, they've gained weight. They weren't the most beautiful person to start off with, but, you know, they are now in a totally different place. And let's see, let me share this.
Hello everybody, my name is Jennifer, and if it looks like I just got out of the shower and I'm wearing my nightgown, it is because that is exactly what has happened. And you may ask, why are you here without your makeup on? Why are you here looking like this? You should pretty yourself up and so on. Let me tell you about something. I was at Walmart today. Yep, just like anybody. And, you know, I was in there pushing the buggy and everything, and there was this guy, and older gentleman, white, 50-something, I don't know, the typical, sadly. And even though I've had people of color do this, I've had people of Latino background do it, I've had people do it, I've had people that are non-religious, I've had gay people do this. Now, this is not condemning you, the viewer, please don't think that, but I've got to share something with you. And you've got to know straight away that I'm really pissed. First off, as I was in Walmart, pushing that buggy, the guy, the 50-year-old I was telling you about, he looked over at me and burst out laughing. Now, I didn't look like this. I looked like this for a point. You may think, oh, you look like a man. You sound like a man. Why, without your hair all prettied up, I would swear that you were a man. Matter of fact, I knew you a long time ago and you were a man. See, his assumptions might be like a lot of other people out there, maybe yours even. And because there needs to be change, there needs to be awareness, there needs to be a better way to act. Well, as that guy burst out laughing, and I mean it was loud, and it was obvious, I looked over at him, and that's what I do now. I'm a strong person here. I looked over at him and I was like, what the hell are you laughing at? And I said it strong too, like I was going to tear his teeth out. Because I could. So anyway, I was really upset. You know, for the very basic reason of you don't know a person, you don't know if they're intersexed, you don't know if they have a problem, you don't know. And because you look at someone and burst out laughing and make a condemnation and a judgment, something with you about trans people. I myself am very strong, right? But there are, and times when I wasn't, but there are people who are not strong. And I think I do an okay job of it. Not right now, because I'm trying to show you. I'm trying to get you to not look at some freaking thing that I do with makeup, or look at what the heck I've done with my hair, or look at some dress I'm wearing, or lipstick, or whatever the heck else it is. For you to say that I'm okay to go to Walmart without any kind of comment. So, not all of us are strong though. Not all of us can rip somebody's teeth out, or we're in MMA like me, or other stuff like this, right? Okay. They may not be in a mental stability or a place because of all the social issues that they went through when they were kids, because of some of you who picked on, teased, beat up transgender people. I have a right to be at Walmart just like that white guy, or a Latino couple, or whoever else is going to laugh at me. I got a right. And if you're going to be as bold because of Trump or some other thing, that you think you're going to catcall, yell out, laugh, make fun of a person at a Walmart that you don't even know, you better get ready, because I'm not going to take it. My wife doesn't take it. We stand up for other trans people we see that people have done such a thing to. So, but here's the thing about not strong people. Mad. That not strong people, if you make fun of them, guess what? They go home and they kill themselves. They go home and they take drugs. They go home and they jump off a bridge. Got it? Yeah, it hurts my feelings. Of course it does. What if somebody made fun of you because you're fat? Are you? You didn't hear me make fun of you. So why would you comment with your brother, your sister, your pastor, other people about trans people and make fun of them? Man in a dress? Really? Oh, Brother Dave is such a man of God, and now he's left. Now he's evil. And he said, oh, he's wearing a dress. Let me tell you something about that. I've always been a woman, and guess what? When I was a minister, I was a bloody woman too. You may say, oh, you didn't look like one. There's your problem. There's your problem. I don't need to look like anything. Transgender people don't need to look like bloody nothing.
Sure of this, and the anger, the wanting to ram down people's throat. I was always a woman, even when I looked like such and such. And this person, as a matter of fact, I dated them after I interviewed them, and they didn't look like that. I mean, as a matter of fact, go ahead and share, you know, what they looked like before. We've seen a massive decline, which really worries me. You know, it really worries me. And they've had an orchiectomy. You know, they definitely, you know, were a little, and this is recently. So, I mean, they've gone from what you see there, happy-go-lucky, you know, to what we just showed you on the video, this angry, proclaim that people need to bow down to their needs and accept them, and how dare you, and if you don't, I'm going to bust your teeth out. there's that male violence again. You know, and every time I see that, I want to share it because, you know, people claim that people are hurting trans women, but trans women become very vital towards other people because, you know, you can't expect the world to just like understand what you're doing. You know, it's not something that's normal. It's not. I mean, I did, and I understand this is not normal what I did to myself. You know?
Yeah, it's really sad to see where they've gotten to in life. I mean,
it is.
I'm just, my heart goes out to
totally. When
Jenny.
I saw that, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? You know, and I mean, they even talk about losing the ability to orgasm, you know, in the video, and it is heartbreaking. It's totally heartbreaking that what happens to individuals who are allowed to transition later in life. You know, there's never complete happiness because they're always battling against something that they will never be able to change no matter what they do.
It's painful to see that that they feel this strongly and that they would actually put out a video calling out people when, you know, it's never right to pick on anyone. I don't care who you are. It's never a right to do that. And in a public place like Walmart, people need to grow up and act their age, but you know, it's not acceptable for that to happen. But to demand that people see you in the way that you want to be seen, and when you tell people that, you know, I've always been a woman, even when I was a pastor. I remember she would tell me that too. I was a woman then. They didn't know it. And it's like, so it's their fault that your delusional belief is something that has to be forced down their throat, and that, you know, I mean, it's one thing to be picked on and not to have, you know, people say mean things about you, but it's another thing to make people basically like change their opinion or change their whole view on life.
Yeah, you're forcing people.
When, you know, I mean, it's like, yeah,
it's just not right. It's not right at all. Here's another article from the American College of Pediatrics. Gender ideology harms children. Okay, the American College of Pediatrics urges healthcare professionals, educators, and legislation to reject all policies that condition children to accept as normal a life of chemical and surgical impersonation of the opposite sex. Technology determines reality. And, you know, even if they start at a young age or whether they do it later on in life, it's a life of hurt. It's a life of deception. It's a life of unhealthiness. Anyone, you know?
We saw a video just the other day about this person called Trucker Patty, who had basically transitioned in their 20s, I think, or something like that, and had sex for assignment back in '82. And they had 2 marriages, and their husband never found out. Either husband never was told that they were transsexual and that they had been a male, born male. You know, this doesn't work for Trucker Patty, who is now a broken down 60-year-old that
who had cancer,
has had cancer, is grossly obese, and, you know, they're not healthy at all, and they have wrinkles to boot. And, you know, and it's not well and good for Jazz Jennings either, who was on, you know, a show with Tommy Lawrence, who was a conservative pundit and stuff and works at Fox News now. But they're trying to explain and trying to get people to get it. And, you know, it's just telling someone to believe a different way than what their instinctual understanding of life It's not fair.
No.
You don't. People don't have the right to do that.
And especially when we know that it's impossible to change gender. It is impossible to be born in the wrong body. These are just things that have been used to reel in the agenda, get people to feel sorry for you, and allow people the impossible, you know?
So number one point being made in this article is an objective biological binary trait. XY and XX are genetic markers of male and female respectively. And it fits with most of society, and all this intersex talk, people claiming intersex, those that don't want to have that, their genitals touched and are truly intersex, they're like a small, minuscule amount of people on the planet, respectively, not genetic markers of a disorder. The norm for human design is to be conceived either male or female. It is binary by design, with the obvious purpose being the reproduction and flourishing of our species. This principle is self-evident. The exceedingly rare disorders of sex development, DSDs, limited to testicular feminization and congenital adrenal hyperplasia, are all medically identifiable deviations from the sexual binary norm and are rightly recognized as disorders of human design. Individuals with DSDs, also referred to as intersex, do not constitute a third sex.
No one is born with a gender. Everyone is born with a biological sex. Gender, an awareness of and sense of oneself as male or female, is a sociological and psychological concept, biological one. No one is born with an awareness of themselves as male or female. This awareness develops over time, and like all developmental process, may be derailed by a child's subjective perception, relationships, and adverse experience from infancy forward. People who identify as opposite sex or somewhere in between do not compromise.
The person that they are not is at best a sign of confused thinking. When an otherwise healthy biological boy believes he's a girl, or an otherwise healthy biological girl believes she is a boy, an objective psychological problem exists that lies in the mind, not the body, and it should be treated as such. These children suffer from gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria, GD, formerly listed as gender identity disorder, GID, is a recognized mental disorder in the most recent edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, DSM-5. The psychodynamic and social learning theories of GID, GD have never been disproved.
Puberty is not a disease, and puberty-blocking hormones can be dangerous. Reversible or not, puberty-blocking hormones induce a state of disease, the absence of puberty, and inhibit growth and fertility in a previously biological healthy child. They're trying to stop something that shouldn't be stopped.
You're feeding children with a prescription that amounts to a cancer medicine.
For a mental confusion, mental disorder, because there's nothing biologically going on.
5. According to the DSM-5, as many as 98% of gender-confused boys and 88% of gender-confused girls eventually accept their biological sex after naturally passing through puberty.
Prepubertal children diagnosed with gender dysphoria may be given puberty blocker as young as 11 and will require cross-sex hormones in later adolescence to continue impersonating the opposite sex. These children will never be able to conceive, and any genetically related children, even via artificial reproduction technology. In addition, cross-sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen, are associated with dangerous health risks, including but not limited to cardiac disease, high blood pressure, blood clots, strokes, diabetes, and cancer. 7.
Rates of suicide are nearly 20 times greater among adults who use cross-sex hormones and undergo sex reassignment surgery. Now, saying that, my former friend Jenny,
Mm-hmm.
They look suicidal.
They do.
They look like they could be violent.
Yeah.
They look like they are suffering.
Yeah. And they've gotten worse since they did the orchiectomy. Which you said, I said, this is going to be an accident waiting to happen.
And that's what happens, you know, pretty common.
Yep.
Even in Sweden, which is among the most LGBTQ affirming, the rate of suicide is high. What compassionate and reasonable person would condemn young children to this fate, knowing that after puberty, as many as 88% of girls and 98% of boys will eventually accept reality and achieve a state of mental and physical health?
98% boys. 8, conditioning children to believing a lifetime of chemical and surgical impersonation of the opposite sex and helpful is child abuse. Endorsing gender discordance as normal via public education and legal policies will confuse children and parents, leading more children to present to gender clinics where they will be given puberty blocker drugs. This in turn virtually ensures they will choose a lifetime of carcinogenics and otherwise toxic cross-sex hormones and likely consider unnecessary surgical mutilation of their healthy bodies part as young adults. You know, all these gender clinics that are like coming out of the woodwork never existed before. We've never heard of this. You know, this is just madness.
Recent. They're very recent. They're because they found a gold mine.
Yeah.
In this, and where medicine finds a gold mine,
oh gosh, yeah,
they go stake their claim. Yeah. And written and supported by Dr. Michelle A. Cretella, MD, President of the American College of Pediatricians, Quentin Van Meter, MD, Vice President of the American College of Pediatricians, and as a pediatric endocrinologist, Dr. Paul McHugh, MD, University Distinguished Service Professor of Psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University Medical School, and the former psychiatrist in chief at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And you know, anything with McHugh's name on it is always derided.
Every time that anything comes out speaking against the agenda, the trans Gestapo will stop at nothing to discredit, to destroy. You know, that's her MO.
So they said, the bottom line is this: our opponents advocate a new scientifically baseless standard of care for children with condition that would evolve after puberty for the vast majority of patients concerned, 98% of boys. Specifically, they advise affirmation of children's thoughts, which are contrary to physical reality. The chemical castration prior to puberty with GnRH agonists, puberty blockers, which cause infertility, stunted growth, low bone density, and an unknown impact upon their brain development. And finally, the permanent sterilization of these children prior to age 18 via cross-sex hormones.
There is an obvious self-fulfilling nature of encouraging young GD children to impersonate the opposite sex and then institute pubertal suppression. If a boy who questions whether or not he's a boy, who is meant to grow up into a man, is treated as a girl, then has natural pubertal progression to manhood suppressed, have we not set in motion an inevitable outcome? All of his same-sex peers develop into young men. His opposite-sex friends develop into young women. But he remains a pre-pubertal boy. He will be left psychologically isolated and alone.
He will be left with the psychological impression that something is wrong. He will be left able to identify with his same-sex peers and being male, and thus be more likely to self-identify as non-male or female. Moreover, neuroscience reveals that the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is responsible for judgment and risk assessment, is not mature until the mid-20s.
Never has it been more scientifically clear that children and adolescents are incapable of making informed decisions regarding permanent, irreversible, and life-altering medical interventions. For this reason, the college maintains it's abusive to promote this ideology, first and foremost for the well-being of gender dysphoria children themselves, and secondly, for all of their non-gender dysphoria peers, many of whom will substantially question subsequently question their own gender identity and face violation of their rights to bodily privacy and safety. It's just crazy, you know. It's like 50 years ago, none of this crap. None of this crap. I mean, there's always been people that have crossed the gender lines. They like to cross-dress. They like to bedroom, but they weren't given a free license like they're giving now. It's like, come one, come all, you know, and let's recruit the kids while we're at it because, you know, it's validation for us as adults. And if people don't really take a look at what's going on here, we're going to be heading for major trouble because it will affect the entire world. It's affecting people as we speak now, you know, and it's there's no need for that.
Well, the most important thing about it all is that these things harm children, and what they want people to know is that the practice of pubertal suppression in young children, prescription of a lifelong, basically, sentence of cross-sex hormones, tantamount to mass child abuse. And mass child abuse is going on in gender clinics all across this country and all around the world. And it need to put their foot down and say, no, enough is enough. These kids are too precious to be lost. Our population is too precious to be lost. You know, the future of families are too precious to be lost to mass sterilization.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's wrong.
And for a mental condition, for a condition that is based on trauma, disassociation, inability to cope with your own sexuality, you know, and it's just like there'd be better ways of allowing this to take place without all this medicalization and all this complete destruction of a person's life. You know, we're not saying don't express away. But when it comes to medicalization, when it comes to splitting families apart, when it comes to whatever, don't do it. Don't do it, because it really solves nothing in the end.
Yeah, you don't want to hurt yourself, and you don't want to hurt others.
Yeah. People who've been there, done that, you know, the outcome, you know, and although a lot of people pretend to be happy, I mean, as an individual that we showed you earlier, to be happy.
They'll even tell you
right now, I'm happy, damn it, you know. They're not happy. Happy when you can't orgasm anymore. How can you be happy when every time you go to the store, someone's going to be laughing at you? That's cruelty for a gender specialist that handed out a letter to a person who was already fully grown, developed. It's cruel. It's totally cruel. Okay, so a little health section here. You know, there's nutritional world will tend to confuse people, and I think big pharma individuals to create what has been known to be a great food or whatever is now harmful to your health. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm going to read you first what the amazing benefits of kale. This is an article that was printed out or put out September 27th of this year. And so it said 13 amazing benefits of hair and your health.
Kale is one of the most famous green vegetables, and it's eaten for its low calorie and high fiber content. It is an important and digestive ingredient, and hence has become a common name in Indian households. Traditionally, kale is consumed as a side dish in sauteed kale, but it also adds extra taste when added to soups, casseroles, and other dishes.
Conclusions, the kale vegetable is also widely popular for its healthy, can also be eaten as a weight loss inducing ingredient in meals, and its leafy green texture makes it an ingredient in salads and in many similar recipes.
It's the queen of greens for vitamin A. Compared to any other leafy green vegetable, kale has over 100% of the average person's daily A, vitamin A, and C requirement. Forget the oranges.
Right.
Eat your kale. Kale is often compared to oranges because of its richness in vitamins.
Well, a cup of chopped kale contains 134% of your recommended daily vitamin C intake, and orange has only 130% of the daily vitamin C requirement. Go figure. Besides these vitamins, kale has also an abundant supply of vitamin K. This is necessary for bodily functions such as normal blood clotting, bone health, antioxidant activity. It is all of that that makes this list of kale benefits so long.
Okay. Health benefits of kale. Let us quickly look at some of the most well-known health benefits of kale greens. High fiber content. Kale is a good source of dietary fiber, which improves the digestive action and bowel movements. This can prove extremely beneficial for people having digestion issues.
Iron content. Kale leaves are also a good source of iron for our body. Iron is needed in the blood for hemoglobin production and also for the oxygen transportation. An healthy state of blood also contributes to the maintenance of heart rate.
Vitamin C, number 3. Vitamin C content in kale improves the immunity by hydration, providing antioxidants and metabolism promoting processes. All of these boost the functioning of the body, thus boosting immunity.
Number 4, vitamin K. Vitamin K is also found in kale, which strengthens the body's bone health, prevents clotting of blood, and also helps the treatment of Alzheimer's disease.
5, bone strength and production. Kale has a good proportion of calcium that aids in strengthening of bone and also its formation in kids and adults.
Better than drinking cow's milk. Cow's milk is bad for you, so eat your kale. Number 6, inflammation. Kale is an anti-inflammatory food type and curbs unwanted free radical reactions. These reactions, which when not stopped, produce unnecessary byproducts and cause inflammation.
7, anti-cancer. Along with the effect of antioxidants in the body, kale also has the effect of preventing cancerous formations in the body.
Detoxification. Kale helps in the detoxification of the body by providing its fiber and sulfur.
9, lung and oral diseases. High vitamins content in kale helps in the prevention of lung and oral cavity diseases.
And number 10, skin and vision. Vitamin A in kale also prevents skin disease and helps improve your health.
Kale. 11, vitamins A and K. As you know, your skin requires a healthy dose of vitamin A. A diet lacking in vitamin A can lead to dry and flaky skin. Vitamin A plays a pivotal role in repairing the tissues underneath your skin and prevents damage caused by free radicals. Vitamin K serves as a powerful ingredient in many skincare products as it helps to get rid of tiresome dark circles under your eyes.
I just lost my place here. What number are we on?
Number 12.
Vitamin C. Vitamin C to help reduce damage caused by free radicals, which is mostly likely to occur when your skin is overexposed to the sun. In other words, vitamin C helps prevent premature aging of the skin and helps you stay younger looking for a longer period of time.
Hair benefits of kale. 13, omega fatty acids. Besides its rich vitamin content, kale is also known to be packed with omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. Your hair benefits immensely when you drink a glass of kale juice every day because of the mishmash of the 2 fatty acids. If you happen to be facing hair breakage problems, you should consider incorporating kale juice into your daily diet. It is perhaps best to take it in the morning or at breakfast. You'll notice a change in the elasticity of your hair. Besides strengthening your hair roots, the benefits of kale also includes improving the blood circulation in your scalp. Thus, the growth rate of your hair increases.
And if you drink your piss, then you're drinking the kale in the morning. That's what my hair is growing about. We eat kale all the time. Selection and storage. You get fresh kale during fall and the winter season. Be sure to look small to medium leaves. Try to avoid bunches with brown or yellowish leaves. Once you're done, it's best to store it in a plastic bag in the coldest part of the refrigerator or the freezer. This helps keep the green queen last for as long as 3 to 5 days. Okay, we're probably not going to go into the different ways of cooking it. There's like, we usually eat it raw in the salad. I like it that way. You know, you could also make kale chips, or you could cook with it, but it's great stuff. But now, the Mercury Muse, because of all these great, wonderful benefits you get to kale, maybe people are eating kale a lot. So Big Pharma's going, we got to demonize this. We got to make this like bad.
I know. Teen joined us.
Hey, Teen!
Says, hi, you're looking great. Hope the show's gone well. I'll have to go back and listen to what I missed.
Oh, okay. Thank you for joining us, though. Thank you. So here's the other side of the coin, the people that say that kale is bad for you. Now, mind you, the first article came on September 27th, and this article was the date?
October 3rd.
October 3rd. So in less than a span of a week, kale went from being the glorious, wonderful kale to the don't eat this stuff, it's bad for you. And the studies show popular health food can be dangerous.
And they had to choose a picture that kind of looks like...
Not a very good kale.
Yeah,
I wouldn't pick that kale there at all. It doesn't look good. Maybe that's the problem. Put down the fork. Step away from that salad. You know the extremely green and cruciferous superfood you've been gorging on. Hate to break it to you, health food lovers, but recent studies are suggesting that kale may actually be bad for you. How rude. Health food lovers, put down your,
I know.
It's
like health food lovers. So that's basically junk food lover telling the health food lover.
Or the meat and dairy, or, the ones that don't ever eat any healthy food. They're like, kale's bad for you.
The upshot is that rawness might be dangerous when it comes to kale. I think we're suffering, honey.
I know.
I don't know.
We've been eating raw kale for quite a long time now. Even when we did the raw vegan,
I know.
And all my thyroid tests came out superb.
I know.
Long
a darling of the health food set, kale. As the Baltimore Sun reported, and it's probably some
fat, overweight,
some sponsored corporate interest who's, while cooked kale is still regarded as a nutritional powerhouse, if you're chomping down on too many raw kale salads, you may be running the risk of impairing your thyroid.
Right, your thyroid. When all the list of wonderful things, you're going to impair. I thought you impair your thyroid by eating meat or drinking cow's milk or eating all the junk food or overly exerted fats, Kale has long been hailed for its heart healthy and cancer-fighting properties. However, it also contains progesterone, a compound that can interfere with thyroid hormone synthesis, as well as cyclinic ions, which can overwhelm the iodine your thyroid needs. Folks, but
what really kind of struck me was I was looking at a study out of Oregon State University's Linus Pauling Institute. To be 93, but he died of cancer, and he was pretty much his whole entire life.
Right. And he create some sort of...
He believed in created explosives for the government, and I mean, he's also given credit for doing some other good things, but believed that you could take an abnormal amount of nutritional supplements to fight off disease.
Okay.
And, we're talking about synthetic that mimic actual vitamin C.
Right. That's great. And maybe that's the problem, because kale is supposed to have higher vitamin C. Yeah, there's and the vitamin C makers are like, no, you got to buy the synthetic vitamin C.
There you go. That's it.
Instead of eating kale, it gives you 134% amount of the vitamin C requirement, more than an orange would. There we go.
That means that consuming big portions of raw kale healthy may actually lead to hormonal irregularities.
But hey, the cow that you're eating is full of hormones. The synthetic hormones that you're putting in your body is only messing up your endocrine system.
Yeah,
but don't eat kale.
Yeah, but the natural food. so obvious.
I know.
That may well wreak havoc on blood sugar,
Uh,
weight, and overall metabolic health. And like I said, Dr. Linus Pauling was not the picture of health at all. Just like Dr.
Atkins would promote eat all the meat and cheese you want, and he died morbidly obese.
Some say you could even develop a goiter. So they're putting fear in people. Yikes.
Yeah. Well, an 88-year-old woman in China fell into a coma in 2010 after a case of cabbage-related thyroid dysfunction. Cabbage is not kale. In an attempt to avoid diabetes, she had been eating 3 pounds of raw bok choy every day for months. So the good news seemed to be that moderation is the best thing in all things, including kale.
Moderation is not the best.
No.
This is the lunacy that the health food industry is trying to fight. It's these stupid, preposterous ideas that say that a little bit of sugar and a little bit of high fructose corn syrup and a little bit of, this or that.
Yeah.
The body's never not looking.
Yeah, it's consistency. You got to keep, doing the healthy stuff. You got to remove the unhealthy stuff, and that includes unhealthy thoughts, unhealthy way of living. If you don't take care of this, it's going to break down. Just like your car breaks down,
Related articles. Is diet soda really that bad for you?
Yeah, that seems to be a trend now. It's like, I think the junk food, they're just like bringing these articles to make people question their healthy lifestyle. I give up. I'm just going to eat whatever.
Does the body good?
Oh boy, I'm telling you, it's like these people are putting out these articles.
How dangerous is mac and cheese? New report. What
is Mercury News from? British?
No, it's in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area. Wow, I'm pretty scared of that. It's sad. It's sad what they're doing to people, and telling them that they could change their gender, promoting dangerous blockers and hormones. People chop their genitals.
Or the hoo-ha.
I mean, it's just, and then you got individuals like we showed you that are just soft than ever and lacking orgasm.
And, lacking orgasm, I don't know if they thought that was something that wasn't a big deal, but when you do these things and this person's married, they have a relationship and a partner, and it's almost like they don't think of what the partner would think, what the partner wants. What the partner wants, how important intimacy is in the relationship, and just purely doing something just because you want to be justified.
Yeah, validation.
I mean, as soon as they had it done, they talked about how now they had like a nice little smoothness down there, and it's like,
it makes no sense to me. It's like when trans guys have to bind so that they could hide their breasts, breasts they were born with, because they want to be male. Not realizing that, even male, if you're overweight, you end up having breasts. So, it's just this whole stereotypical, there's a lot of women that are very flat-chested, so flat-chestedness is not just a male thing. And the whole concept of, using breast forms or tucking and all this stuff that transgender people do to justify, what they want to feel in their mind, is very unhealthy, extremely unhealthy.
It is, and I would not recommend Moon Demon to shove an entire bushel of vitamin-rich kale up your...
No, I don't think that's a good thing. Eat it in the salad. It's much tastier. Cook with it.
I did have a friend of mine who was a natural foods person back in the day tell me that you could use a potato and kind of slither it up a little bit and stick it up your butt if you have hemorrhoids.
Yeah, that seems to work.
But I wouldn't. Wrong orphan.
That's right, team. Wrong orphan. No, kale is very tasty. I mean,
it's a bad rap.
I don't know.
I like leafy greens like that anyway, but almost like they get a bad rap,
Yeah,
you know,
it does.
and it keeps longer than a lot of these. Like we were buying a spring mix that was just like going off
so quickly, and kale lasts all the way to the end. And we buy the 2-tab one. We buy the purple kale and we buy the green
the dino
kale. It's delicious, you know, and it's just like, you know, I love it.
It's good.
Good
I mean,
stuff, yeah.
and today we're not going to have any of that.
No, because we ran out. We were supposed to do groceries today, but we didn't, so we'll do it tomorrow. But it's okay.
So it is a carb-filled.
Whatever. Well, we have celery and carrots.
Whatever you're going to make is going to be carb-filled. What are you making?
Pasta. With temp, yeah, and then, you know, we ran out of our crackers, so I got to make us some tortilla chips. No, we ran out of those too, so I want to make us garlic bread.
Oh,
with our pasta. So
cool.
Yep. Well, that's it.
Kale chips are good.
Yeah, awesome. And we have the air fryer. I haven't done it because I don't want to kale.
We put a dehydrator last year, and that kind of flopped.
Yeah, but you can make kale chips, but it kind of like, I like my kale raw. I think like they're promoting it cooked to be healthy. When you cook a vegetable, you know, you lose its nutrient completely. So I like and you like your vegetable crunchy too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, carrots.
I don't like mushy vegetables.
I think that's one of the reasons people hate vegetables. Because as a kid, that's what they give you, this mushy, overly cooked carrots, and it's like
make like a soupy kind of thing, you know.
That's good.
And if you put kale in that, it tastes good.
Yeah, yeah, it
does.
This is it. We'll see you guys Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Yeah, remember now we're on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We leave us way too much. And you probably get tired of seeing our faces so many days a week. So
we're hearing it.
Yeah, we're hearing us. So Tuesday and Thursdays will be it. And again, if you guys have any questions, want to be interviewed, know somebody who wants to be interviewed, share it and speak, you know, anything, email us at transitionradioshow@gmail.com. Again, that's transitionradioshow@gmail.com.
Or again, on the live show, you can always call us.
The number's always down there. People are shy, they don't call. But at least they
can interact.
All right, guys, so love you, but remember to always love yourselves too. Good night. Stay out of trouble. Don't do anything we wouldn't do. Or maybe do.